The Child Maltreatment Study is a landmark for Australia because it's the first time we've identified the true prevalence in the general population of all 5 types of child maltreatment and their association with mental health disorders and health risk behaviours through life. This is really important because national policy needs to be informed by this evidence. To date, we as a nation have lacked this evidence, and so our national policy to prevent child maltreatment has been incomplete and uninformed. The 5 types of child maltreatment that we surveyed are physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, and exposure to domestic violence. And we assessed these from birth right through to age 18. This is important because we now know the percentage of Australian children who experience each of these 5 types of maltreatment. We found that 4 health risk behaviours were particularly strongly associated with child maltreatment. These were cannabis dependence, self-harm in the prior year to participating in the survey, suicide attempt in the prior year to participating in the survey, and smoking. We found that concerningly high proportions of children and youth experience child maltreatment, and these are severe experiences, and often they're also chronic experiences. So they're not just things that happen once, they happen repeatedly and/or over a long period of time. So these are really hard things that kids are going through. As well, a lot of kids who experience these maltreatment events experience severe mental health disorders and/or health risk behaviours. And what's important to note here is that these outcomes of maltreatment crystallise in childhood and adolescence, so they're happening in the teenage years, for example. And this makes growing up really hard for these kids because, as well as having experienced the maltreatment and having these mental disorders and/or health risk behaviours, there can be a cascade of effects. So for example, it's hard to do well at school, hard to obtain and stay in employment, and hard to navigate relationships. So for many kids, growing up in Australia, even today, is really difficult. We found some substantial gender disparities in our study. 2 of the most notable ones were that girls experience much more sexual abuse than boys, so about 2 times the rate of sexual abuse in girls compared to boys. We also found that girls experience much more emotional abuse than boys do, so about 1.5 times the rate as boys. And when we looked at our youth participants, these disparities are actually growing in Australia today. So these are really concerning findings. We need to do much better to protect our boys, but we need to pay particularly strong attention to how we raise and protect our girls. We have to see child maltreatment as an urgent national public health issue. We have a moral, social and economic imperative to invest more and invest better to better prevent, identify and respond to child maltreatment. The Australian government and state and territory governments need to work together to coordinate a national long-term plan informed by this evidence to better prevent, identify and respond to child maltreatment.